Time now for our daily dose of culture. And here in Paris, France's biggest literary event is getting underway this Friday. This year marks the 39th edition of the Paris Book Fair, or the Salon du Livre. And ahead of Brexit and European elections, Europe seems to be very much in the spotlight. Well, France 24's Catherine Clifford is there at the Porte de Versailles, on the edge of the capital, making her way through a maze of books and authors. Cathy, welcome to the show. What's going on at this year's fair then?
Yeah, so over the next 3 days, some 165,000 visitors are set to mill about this vast space, full of stalls from France's biggest publishing houses, international ones too. Some 3,900 authors set to appear from across 50 countries. And since 1981, a country has been honoured every year. And this year is the very first year that not a country but a continent in whole is being honoured. And Europe is, of course, a very symbolic choice. This comes on the brink of the planned Brexit date. It comes just a couple of months ahead of European elections, and at a time when the EU is faced with many challenges. Of course, Brexit, the rise of populism across Europe, and the migrant crisis. These are all themes that will be discussed in debates over the weekend. It's also a fantastic chance to discover some European authors. There's some really interesting names. For example, Christos Chrysopoulos. He's a Greek author who talks about modern Greece and its search for identity. Paul Lynch, an Irish author. Robert Menas, an Austrian author who has written what's been dubbed the first great EU novel. It's called The Capital, and it's just come out in English ahead of Brexit. It's a satire, but it's written from a pro-EU voice, so it's a gentle mocking of the EU. Also a great chance to discover some really little-known, yet still little-known fiction from across Europe. For example, Bratislava is a city of honor, and some 27 works have been translated specially for the fair.
OK, so quite a political flavour there at the Salon du Livre. And one of Turkey's most prominent novelists, who is, of course, the Nobel Literature Prize winner Orhan Pamuk, is also there presenting his 10th novel, which is entitled The Red-Haired Woman. He recently published an open letter along with 30 other writers and intellectuals saying that, and I quote, "Europe is in peril." Well, he is today's guest on Encore. This is what he had to say.
I strongly believe in the idea of Europe, which, in a way, is a French invention, égalité, liberté, fraternité. And that gave us whole women's movement, democracy, free speech, respect for minorities. I believe in these values, and Europe gave these values to humanity, so we should stick to them. These are some bad times are approaching, but these values are so deeply rooted in Europe, and also, believe me, in humanity, by the intellectuals, by people who read their Balzacs or whatever, that they will not be eroded so fast. But we have to be careful to defend them.
OK, and that was Orhan Pamuk with an important message there, speaking to France 24. Cathy, back to you at the Salon du Livre. I mean, what other big names, apart from Orhan Pamuk, will be appearing at this year's fair?
Well, there's Douglas Kennedy, who the US novelist, who's actually been a huge success in France, very popular here. He's here promoting a children's book about autism. There's also Nicolas Mathieu, who, of course, won France's most prestigious Goncourt Prize for Literature in 2018. Also, the likes of Delphine de Vigan, whose thriller Loyalties just came out in English, and Bernard Minier, whose book Night also just appeared in English. Crime writing, of course, something of a French forte with writers like Michel Bussy, who's also here this weekend, selling very well in translation.
Again, we often hear people talking about the death of the printed press all over the world, really. And I'm just wondering whether France is one of those countries where people are talking as well about the death of the printed press.
Well, France is one of the countries which has actually best been surviving against the digital revolution. Independent bookshops account for some 40% of trade here in France, but even here it's rough sailing. Book sales are dipping year on year, and just last year they hit a 10-year low. But there is hope here. Recent research has found that the majority of French readers are young, they're female, and they are faithful to the printed page and the experience of reading a tangible book.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Kathy Clifford, at this year's Salon du Livre in central Paris. Thank you so much.